up too. Okay? All right, Jenna, it's all you.
All right, excellent. Okay, find a comfortable seat and try to stay as grounded as you can with your spine as tall as you can. Unless you're in a swing, then get comfy. And close your eyes and settle into your breath. Keep a nice, steady inhale and exhale. And have a train running through your mind of things that you wish to achieve in this program. Or maybe what's your intention for yourself by the end of these 30 days? And then coming back to this exact day, this moment, what would you like to learn today? What do you wish to find out about maybe yourself, Ayurveda, meditation? What is it you would like to learn? And come back to your breath. Inhale in through your nose, and then exhale down to the earth. Inhale through your nose, and send your exhales down. Use your breath to ground yourself and prepare yourself for the 30 days ahead. Placing your right hand on your heart center, and then cover your right hand with your left. And give yourself a moment of gratitude for yourself, for allowing you to do this practice, to dive head deep in a practice that will change your life. And slowly release your hands and open your eyes. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Jana.
Mhm.
All right. So we're going to begin the first kind of baby steps into what Ayurveda is. And like I put out in the post, so if you've been following the posts that I've been putting on your classroom, so if you go to Google Classroom, I've been putting some posts and some information on there. So follow that stuff because it kind of gives you a lead into what's going to go on each Wednesday in the Wellness Wednesdays. And today we're going to focus on the routine, what a routine means, what the circadian clock is, because it's a huge part of what Ayurveda is. We're going to talk about in the next 30 days the very, very basics to be able to take those baby steps forward. And then eventually we're going to create other programs off of that to help create more details in that. So we're going to skim over Vata, Pitta, Kapha. We're going to use them in their more general terminology as far as nature versus our own individual constitution. Because it's so detailed and because there's so much information, it's easier just to have a next step that will go into that versus trying to put it all into the stuff that you still have to do before you even do that stuff. So we're going to stick with the baby steps to step forward. And then in the next month or so, we'll create the next program that will have more details about the individual constitutions, which plays a huge role, but not as big as tongue scraping and drinking lemon water and doing oil pulling. So those are just really basic things that it doesn't matter what your constitution is, you can use neutral stuff all across the board for that. So to get started, I'm going to talk about what the circadian clock is. So the circadian clock is our clock that we live by. So it's nature's natural clock. It is a study of chronobiology. So it is the biology of the natural rhythms of nature. This is important for our physical, mental, and behavioral changes within us. So if we're affected by nature and we work with the clock, we're going to stay relatively healthy, if not very, very healthy. If we work against nature and against the Ayurvedic clock, we will be sick. It is pretty much a guarantee. And it's an accumulative thing. So it takes time. It takes lots of time, but it also takes time to be able to get back into the rhythm with nature and realize the importance of it. And I think we can see that. I mean, how often at night do we start to feel tired at 9 o'clock? How often in the morning do we start to wake up and become more alert when the sun comes up? So there's certain signals that our body follows, and that's the science of chronobiology. So following nature's rhythms. So the daylight cycle is a significant part of this. And the practices that go around the daylight cycle are the ones that are going to have the most influence and impact, along with like eating your biggest meal at noon, that kind of thing. So we'll talk about each individual thing, and then over the next 3 weeks, we break them down even further. So the master clock is a circadian clock. So it's in the brain, it coordinates our biological clocks. So all the individual clocks within our body. So we don't just have one clock that we go by. We have all the systems of our body have individual clocks also, because we don't want to be releasing melatonin in the middle of the day. We want to be releasing in the evening to be able to go to sleep. We don't want to be releasing a bunch of cortisol at night because it'll keep us awake through the nighttime. So there's certain hormones that are released and certain clocks that dictate the times in which these hormones are released. So every single function of our body has a release process. This is why eating at specific times, going to bed at specific times, getting up at specific times, and keeping things relatively consistent is going to be the key, because when our body can predict what's going to happen, it will create the right hormones, the right chemicals to be able to digest food. It will create the right functions in order to be able to go to sleep, to be able to wake up, to be able to digest food. And it's funny because like this basic stuff, some of my clients are like, oh, I've heard the Ayurveda basics. I've heard the basics. I'm like, not like this, you haven't. Like every time I teach it, I study more material. Every time I teach it, I study even more material. So the idea is that this stuff is still just a different little turn on it. And even I'm studying Ayurveda basic stuff because there's always different information to be able to find out, or a different way of being able to teach it and a different way of being able to understand it. So what I want you to do is I want you to write down this clock if you haven't already. If you were at the class last on Saturday or last Wednesday, then you probably already have this done. So you'll need your clock, and then 6 o'clock across, 12 o'clocks. So 12 o'clock noon, 12 o'clock midnight. You'll have 2 p.m. and 2 a.m. So make an X through the center, 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. All right. Now I want you to put on this clock, what time do you get up? What time do you go to bed? And if it's a little bit different on the weekend, just put, this is my weekend time, this is my work week time, if there's a difference. What time do you eat? So what time do you eat your breakfast? If you eat breakfast, noon meal, what time do you eat supper? So your evening meal. If you snack, write those things down. What time do you have your bowel movement? If it's daily, if it's not daily, kind of mark that down. If you wake up in the middle of the night, what time do you wake up? If you drink coffee, what time, or caffeine? So sodas would fall in that. Most sodas have caffeine in it. Put that on there. What time do you exercise? So it can be organized exercise where you're going for a run or doing a yoga class or a DVD or something like that. Or it can be something that you go for a walk at night. So I do morning stuff, and then in the evening, before we go to bed, I do a walk in the evening to bring in the natural energy of the evening light going down. It's actually very beneficial for sleep. All right. So these are the basic things to kind of get an idea of where you're at. And these are the things that we're going to be working on, because the beginning of imbalance starts with dis-ease. So where our body feels imbalances because it's being pulled off direction in some way. So either we're going to bed at the wrong time, we're eating meals at the wrong time, that kind of thing is going to pull off our clocks a little bit, because certain hormones are released in order to do certain functions. So we want to keep from going from dis-ease to disease. When we get to disease, then it becomes more of an issue and it's much harder to fix. So we want the preventative care before it becomes a true illness. And I think living in this day and age with all the stuff going on, you know, we don't hear as much about cancer right now, but definitely have that huge flag of what COVID is. And any illness that's around that is still generated because something in our body is not functioning properly. All right, whether we already have a disease that's going to suppress our immune system, or we have things that are coming up, like we have blockages in our body. And I'm going to teach a whole course on the lymphatic system and the importance of the lymphatic system in order to be able to digest food and to be able to have a strong immune system. And it's really fascinating stuff. And it's from the Eastern and Western perspective. So it's really interesting how this is going to play a huge part in absolutely everything you do. And you don't have to be perfect at it, but if you do a pretty good job, pretty good is still going to leave you in a little bit of imbalance, but not dis-ease or disease. All right. Or it's going to start to heal your body if it's something that you're so far out of whack. Like if you're sleeping in the middle of the day for hours, that's going to throw your body completely off. And the only reason why you do that is if you're a baby. Babies need to sleep during the middle of the day. It's a whole different thing. And then elderly. And then again, very, very sick. So if you had, you know, something like COVID or cancer, you'd be working on something a little bit different. That's why I suggest if you have really severe illnesses, we talk about some other things that happen during that time also. I just had a hawk fly through my yard and he's after my chickens. So they're locked up right now, but I'm just like, oh, that's interesting. He's definitely watching my yard. So it caught me off guard a little bit. Anyway, so going back to dis-ease and disease. So natural forces within us are the true healers of disease. So this is by Hippocrates. So this is important to be able to realize. The natural forces within us that are connected to nature's laws are what's going to keep us from getting ill. And this was said way, way, way back. And the Vedas of Ayurveda were written like 5,000 years ago. So there's something to be said about that. And there's something to be said about why our culture is so sick right now. So the things that we focus on in Ayurveda are sleep and rest. So we'll talk about that next week. Diet, nutrition, which is the last week because it's such a huge topic and it kind of all builds into, well, if you're not doing these things, this won't work anyway. You can eat the best foods in the world, and if you're not getting proper sleep, it's just not going to work. Like your body can't function properly on that. Environment and relationships. So our environmental situation, so if we live in a very polluted area, if our environment is very toxic with relationships, that's going to create issues. And then mind and emotions. How do we process our emotions? How do they affect our mind? Can you guys hear that? It's crazy. So the mind and emotions, if we use meditation, meditation is a really great tool for a lot of these things because it slows down a lot of the hormone processes. So your body's able to digest, able to focus, able to process emotions. And then we have exercise and movement. So that will be the third week. And exercise from the Western perspective is very different than from the Eastern perspective. And we'll talk significantly about that. All right. And in our culture, we always have that philosophy, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And then I look at my clients and go, how's that working for you? Especially if you're in your 40s or 50s, it's like, yeah, eventually it's all going to catch up. Eventually things are not going to be quite as easy as what they once were. All right. Imbalance happens because being exposed to environmental toxins and allergies. So some of our allergens aren't necessarily true allergens, like gluten, dairy, wheat, might not even be true allergens because our lymphatic system in our body is not processing them properly. We're not producing the right hormones and the right chemicals to be able to even process the food. And we need some of these harder to digest foods in order to be able to digest environmental toxins, because we have no control over that. We have control over what we put in our body. We do not have control over a lot of the stuff we breathe in unless you move way out into the woods. And even then, it's still even questionable with all the legislature that's being changed around the really protected areas right now. So how often do we really get clean water? And even if it's clean, it could still have microbes in it that could cause dysentery or something really, really gross, giardia, something like that. So being able to digest the foods that are harder to digest helps us to be able to digest things that are also harder to digest that are naturally in our environment or in our water. Holding on to negative or repressed emotions. When we are eating a meal, so let's say you're going out with a friend and you're eating a meal and you're in a really intense conversation, maybe talking passionately about something that's in a negative state, and you eat food. No matter how beautiful that food is, more than likely you're going to get some gut rot from it, or you're not going to feel that well, and you're definitely not going to digest it well. If you're eating with a friend and you're having a really great time and you're having really light conversation, you could probably eat McDonald's and you'd probably digest it okay because your body would actually produce chemicals to be able to break it down because you're in this mood of lightness and not this mood of really heaviness. So really understanding that negative or repressed emotions have a very strong effect on every part of our body. I've worked with clients and they're like, oh, I've got the food down, I've got the nutrition down, but I can't seem to lose weight. I go to bed at the right time. Like, how's your emotional status? Like, how are you feeling emotionally? And they're like, oh, I'm a basket case. I'm like, we still need to work on how that works. And I think we all understand that at some level, right? I mean, going through what we're going through right now, how can you not have some sort of stress? Stress is a part of life, but it's what your perception around stress is and how you process stress is what's going to help you to become, like, get to the next level of processing. Kind of like that. All right. Having an inconsistent schedule. So looking at this, when our schedule is inconsistent, we will start to run into problems. And depending upon your constitution, depends on how long you can stay within these imbalanced things. And some of us say, oh, I'm a night owl. Yeah, it doesn't really exist. Like, we are not nocturnal beings. We are designed, because we can't see at night, we are designed to go to bed at night, sleep through the night, and wake up in the morning. And I will talk about why that's important. But we are designed to have a consistent schedule. The more consistent your schedule is, the easier it will be to deal with stress. And I'm not talking about, like the big, huge stress, like that is what happens in life. And that's normal part of life. Somebody dying, um, a pandemic happening. It's how do you process that? It's the little things, like when you get that text message that you perceive as something, that's when we run into issues. And how do you process that stress? Because anytime your body goes into a stressful situation, you will release cortisol. First, you release a little adrenaline. If you can shut it down before then, so if you can do some pranayama techniques, some meditation techniques, if you could do some brasrika, which really helps to recenter the mind very, very quickly, and cut off cortisol, you might not release it. Once you release cortisol, it's a cascade of different hormone effects. And if you start having issues creating your own cortisol from your adrenals, then it goes from other parts of your body. So it's going to pull from your thyroid, or it's going to pull from your reproductive system. Once it does that, throws your reproductive system off, because it's going to take the protectors of the reproductive system. So it's going to take progesterone, eventually estrogen, and in men it takes testosterone. So it throws things off. So we really want to keep our stress in check. That is probably the number one thing next to sleep. Like sleep would be the next thing. Food and exercise are actually lower on the scale. If you can take care of the first two, stress and sleep, a lot of things are going to happen pretty good, because everything else will kind of fall in place. Because again, you're following that natural cycle of the circadian clock. Inappropriate exercise. So having exercise that doesn't feed you, it depletes you. So often we do exercise where I'm like, going to the gym, I'm just going to work out as hard as I can because I can work out this stress. You're actually creating a lot more stress for your body. And I'm not going to say that exercise is bad and not working out isn't, working out once in a while hard isn't bad, but that still releases cortisol, which causes even more stress on your body, which burns up your adrenals. And there are some people that can just handle it better. And it's whether or not they're doing breathing properly. So I teach a lot of pranayama techniques where we breathe in and out through our nose to be able to restructure our lung capacity and to create strength with our diaphragm. Because if we can breathe through our nose, we're creating not only a natural filter for disease, illness, and bacteria, allergens, that kind of stuff, but we're also creating the right exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide, which is significant in the toxicity and acidity of our bodies. Naturally appropriate diet. So diet and nutrition is a tricky subject, especially in this country, because we have no specific diet nutrition. And why is that? Because we're all from everywhere else in the world. Not many of us were actually Native Americans that I know of in this group. So if you're a natural Native American, yep, if you eat off the land right now, you're probably doing pretty good. But most of us can go to the store and get an avocado anytime. Can we grow avocado in Minnesota? Not so much. Not saying you can't have avocado. I'm a huge pusher of avocado, actually. But I'm just saying we can get anything at any time of year. That doesn't mean we should be eating it. So we will talk about that the 4th week, but we'll get even more detailed in when I do the digestive month, the month on digestion and detoxification. So we'll get really specific into why we eat seasonally and the importance of it, and how much we really do have to eat seasonally in order to recalibrate things a bit. Involved in troubled relationships. So this can be a significant other, or this can be a friendship. So how many of us have found in our life, we've all been on the planet a while, so how many of us have found in life that we've had friends that actually suck the life out of us? And we're not talking about, yeah, right? So have these friends that suck the life out of us. But there's sometimes when a friend just really struggles. So I look at my friends and I look at, people that I work with, and I've got clients too, where I'm just like, I can't work with you anymore. Like, you're just not even there. And that's when I decide I just can't work with somebody. But if somebody's just struggling in life, that's a whole different thing. But if it's this constant thing because they're basically shooting themselves in the foot all the time, is that a relationship you want to be in? Because part of creating a healthy lifestyle is having things in your life that nurture you, that bring you strength and source. And sometimes people need things from you, and that's okay. That's part of taking care of those who are in need. There is that. But I'm talking about the people that are literally ticks. They have no purpose. They suck the life out of you. This is when it becomes really difficult. It becomes even more difficult when they're family members. or siblings, or somebody who's really close. So realize what relationships maybe are a little toxic and either minimize them or, you know, cut them out. I've cut out a few people that, you know, it needed to happen. But it doesn't mean that maybe they'll evolve later and you'll meet at a different time in life. But where your energy goes is where your energy will also follow. So living against nature, going back to this, we'll talk about that even more. Living against your constitution. So we won't get a lot, like I said before, into constitutions, just because it's just so much information. I'd rather spend a whole month on really breaking down constitutions because it's so detailed. And once you understand this, then you could grasp a bigger understanding of what the constitutions are, because it still starts with all this. All right. Any questions as of right now? What do I mean by constitution? So in Ayurveda, we're talking about Vata, Pitta, Kapha. When they're within our body, they're called a constitution. Okay, dosha, also known as a dosha. All right, depending on who you study with. So some teachers will be very specific and they'll say you have to use the word constitution. My teachers were. Some teachers will say you can use the word dosha because that's more Western. That's how the Westerners use it. So I go in between. I'll use both of them, cross-reference them. So the doshas are Vata, Pitta, Kapha. Dosha actually translates as imbalance. So I try to keep it as constitution because we want to stay within our constitution, within our balance. So our constitution is how our makeup is. What mixture of Vata, Pitta, Kapha are dominant in us? We have all three of them. We have to have all three of them to be able to function. Otherwise, we're either a sludge or we're like springing out of our seats or burning up in fire. So we have to have all of them in order to be able to stay balanced. But it's how much of each one we have in order to, that we have to work with to stay balanced. That's why I want to talk about it in another month. Okay, cool? Okay. So going to the clock. Now we will get in a little bit more detail about this so that we can really hammer away over the next few weeks over the major topics. So the major topics, again, are sleep, diet. We'll talk about environment, relationships, because they just come in. Mind, emotions, that's Jenna's topic because she's the meditation queen. And then exercise and movement. So we'll get in more specific about those. So what time do you think you should get up in the morning? It is ideal to get up before 6 a.m. in the morning. And if you don't, yep, it's easy. Yeah, you're a morning person. Kuttas usually do pretty good with that. So morning, getting up before 6 a.m. is ideal. So 5:30, I like 5:30, but I have to do before 6 because if I sleep in much past 6 o'clock, I feel groggy, I feel off. I don't feel myself. And usually then I even get a headache during the day or I'm a little grumpier. So I find that I have to get up at least at 6 a.m. or earlier. 6 a.m. is a good time. Like if you go to bed, even at 11, you still get 7 hours of sleep. So the idea is to get 7, 8 to 9 hours of sleep. Yeah. 8.
And I have 8.
Yep. And that's okay. Yep. So the idea is to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Those of us that are more on the pitta end, we can probably handle the 7 hours, especially during the summer and fall. Winter, we naturally want a little more sleep, and especially being in the northern climate, it's a little easier to sleep. But again, I find that if I sleep too much, I don't do that well. And if I go to bed too early too, I don't feel that I get the right sleep. So for me, I understand that 7 is like my magic number. Anything less, so that's 6.5, I'm like, ooh, not so good. 8, I'm fine with. 9, 10, I'm a mess. But unless I'm sick, that's a totally different thing. Unless I'm sick or coming down with something, I will purposely try to sleep a little bit more then, because I don't want to sleep during the day. Sleeping during the day throws off your circadian clock. And we're not talking about a 10-minute nap. So my dad is a 5-winker. He said, I'm going to go take 5 winks. He literally takes 5-minute naps. Now he takes like 15-minute naps, but he's a little older now. But amazing. But right after meal, he'll go take a little nap and then he'll be fresh for the rest of the day. I've did that a few times. It works really, really well, but it can't be much more than that. When you're getting into that 20-minute, half an hour, hour, 2 hour, that's when you throw your sleep cycle completely off because your body starts to engage and think it needs to release melatonin at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when it needs to be releasing melatonin in the evening after your last meal. Okay. All right. So then we have, what time do you go to bed? So the ideal time to go to bed is about in here. So if you're somebody who gets up 5 or earlier, then yep, 10 p.m. is perfect time. Yep. That's usually the magic number. I say, be in bed by 10 o'clock. No TV, no TV, no TV in your bedrooms. Get that out. That is not just a distraction device. It actually messes with your circadian clock because once the sun goes down, your body starts to release melatonin as the sun is going down. Melatonin is the sleep drug. All right. Drug in a very loose term. It's a sleep hormone. Our body produces it so that we can sleep, not to be able to fall asleep, to be able to stay asleep. And it's designed that way. Okay. So we want it to produce, sometime somewhere in here, depending upon, again, what time you get up. So 10 p.m. is the magic number, but I know Jenna goes to bed about 9:30, 9 o'clock ish, but she gets up at 5. She gets up really early. So that's her. For me, I want to be showering. So I take an evening shower because I like to clean off the day. I'm not a morning shower person. Unless it's really hot out, then I take like 3 showers during the day. Just take a little rinser. I don't even wash it. Just run some cold water over me and I'm good to go again for a while. But so I usually shower about this time because I'm out for a walk here. Then I'm asleep by 10:30, like no later than 10:30, because otherwise I don't get enough sleep. So in bed by 10, might be journaling, might be getting some notes off my mind. So if you're very pitta and you tend to have a racing mind at night, that's kind of a secret thing to be able to do, is to brain dump before we go to bed. So if I find my brain's working because I'm excited about this stuff, it's always this stuff. I really love this stuff. Or my chickens. That's pretty much my life. Then I have to do a brain dump before I go to bed. You all are laughing. So I do a brain dump before I go to bed because then I don't have to think about it, or I don't wake up in here to think about it. If I wake up in the middle of the night, like 12 o'clock or 2 o'clock, it's because I have to go pee and I'm good about going back to sleep. So I don't have that problem. But there are issues around this. And I do understand that, especially women going through menopause will be right in here. Men with prostate issues often will wake up in here. So that's kind of an interesting thing to research a little bit. All right, so we got our bedtime between 9:30 and no later than 10:30. All right, once it gets later than that, what happens is we really start affecting our body's ability to be able to detoxify. All right, our body detoxes at a cellular level between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. This is significant because if we don't get this time, we don't get it again till the next night. And if we constantly go to bed at midnight, it doesn't shift. Like our body is just designed this way. We just don't get it. And so this is a key time to be able to detoxify. It's the pitta time. So remember we talked about pitta in the first lecture, that which digests things. So at night, we're digesting toxins. We're eliminating toxins at a cellular level, every single cell of our body. So it's super important. I'll get into more detail about that next week. So then we go through the evening. There's not really much that happens during this time. We'll go back to the morning time. What time do you eat breakfast? So, I mean, this can vary a little bit. Like I'm kind of, if I've got classes in the morning, I'll be between like 8:30 and 9:30, I'd say. So 8:30 to 9:30 is pretty good, but try to keep it, yep, 8 a.m. is a good time. So it's a good solid time because you want to allow enough time before your noon meal to be able to digest the food. And we say usually about 4 hours. So minimum of 4 hours between meals. There's a few different people that will say you only have to eat 2 meals a day. And there's a few people will say you need to have like 3 full meals and a snack. But in most cases, we'll keep it general right now, 3 meals a day, 3 solid meals a day. All right. The morning can be like a shake. So I've been doing what I call my green monster shake, which is pretty awesome. Jennifer, 10 a.m. is a little bit late. So I would suggest bumping it forward a little bit. And this is even something we can chat about. But you want to get it closer to that 9 o'clock, just again for the digestive time for your noon meal. So I've worked with some of my clients, and we've actually shifted things a little bit different because they were eating at like 10 or 11 o'clock and then having at 2 o'clock. And we're really messing with some really strong digestive processes at that time. So try to get it to the 9 o'clock. It's going to make changes in your life, like digestive changes in your life by doing that. But anyway, I've been doing a smoothie in the morning, and it's been working pretty good. And I'm not a huge smoothie person. Ayurvedics usually aren't. But the nice thing about it is it's been so hot that it seems refreshing, but I don't do anything cold. So there's no ice in there. There's no iced anything in there. But I do avocado, blueberry, mango, and then some greens out of the garden, some mint or some herbs, depending on, and then I put like spirulina in there because spirulina is pretty much, I've been doing some research on spirulina, and the research around it's really fascinating, and the benefits of it. So if there's anything you're going to add into your diet consistently, it would be spirulina. In Ayurveda, they even talk about it and how it is similar to breast milk, which is by far the most concentrated nutrient package you can get. And so breast milk is not readily available for most of us. So spirulina is. And the nutrient value, there's a lot of things in there that we just don't normally get on a daily basis. So it's something you can add in that's fairly easy. So if you look at I've got a kombucha here and it's blue, that's got spirulina in it. Okay. Yeah, I don't know as much about that. So I've just did more of the research around the spirulina. So I can't vouch for that, but it's probably good. I'll do some research and then and let you know, or whatever, if you want to know a little bit more. Or if you want to educate me, I'd be willing to know that too. Okay, so then going into breakfast, what time do you have your bowel movement? So think about what time you have your bowel movement. It should happen not long after you get up in the morning, by 8:30 at the latest. Yep. If you're more pitta constitution, or if you have, if you have more of a pitta constitution, you might have another one like right in here. Might. You really want to try to keep your body regulated in the morning, because during this whole time, your body is detoxifying. Where do you suppose the toxins are going? They're getting out some way, either down or they're going up, one or the other. We want them out as soon as possible. So we want it to happen not long after we basically get up, we stand. So I'd say within an hour or two after you get out of bed. Mine's usually, I'm feeling, gurgling on my left side, ascending, transverse, descending colon, feeling it on my left side. I'm like, yep, scrape my tongue, do my morning routine, and then I'm good to go. Literally. Exercise. What time do you do your exercise? So morning exercise ideally would happen right around here. So right around that 6 o'clock. 7 is fine. Yep, yoga at that time's fine too. So a little bit later yoga class, because you have to work around classes at that point. So, doing yoga in here is fine. Ideally early morning yoga is great, because again, it's going to help things move and help functions move. But there's a little bit of leniency in there, just as long as you're not eating your breakfast then after your yoga class at 10:30, 11 o'clock. All right, so going back into here, exercising in the kapha time of the morning is ideal. So anytime between 6 and 10, ideally a little bit closer in the morning, is going to help give you more energy throughout the morning. So if you can get that 7 o'clock yoga class, that's probably the better one than doing the 10 or 11 o'clock yoga class. But those are good. Yeah. All right. What time do you eat your noon meal? Noon meal. So this is called, the noon meal is called lunch in most city cultures. It's called dinner in the farming communities. So the noon meal should be eaten between 11:30 and 1:30, and as close to noon as possible. If you wait much later, you miss the opportunity to digest food at a better rate. So the idea is to eat at noon because pitta is that which digests things. The sun is the highest at noon, so we want to try to keep with the clock as much as possible. All right. And if you're used to eating at 2, then you start just working yourself back or eating before you feed somebody else. So trying to work things out. These are all, you know, you make it a priority when something goes sideways, but it's better to, you know, to make it a priority before sickness comes up or before your digestion gets so poor that reconstructing it takes a lot more effort. So just doing little bits and pieces at a time, getting up a little bit earlier, not jumping right to 5 o'clock if you're used to getting up at 7 or 8 o'clock. You know, working on the process. Got a puppy? Cute. All right, so getting in at that noon time, and we'll talk a lot about this during nutrition part. If you snack, it's probably because you didn't eat a big enough meal at noon. So your biggest meal should be at noon. Biggest meal at noon. This changed because of the Industrial Revolution. So when the Industrial Revolution happened, we changed our evening meal, which was called supper, translates as something a little bit extra, to dinner at night and lunch at noon. If you go to a farm community, more than likely they will say they'll say dinner and they'll say supper, because supper was often made from the leftovers from noon into the evening meal or soup or stew. So this should be the smallest meal of the day or smaller meal of the day. And what time do you eat supper? Something a little extra. We should be eating our supper between like 5 and before 7. So I'll give that lenience of 7 o'clock because summertime is still just a little bit different. We tend to stay up a little bit later or stay out a little bit later. You know, we'll go back outside, play in our gardens, play their chickens, whatever you got. So yep, 6:30, 5 p.m. Those are all great times. I usually eat right in here. I'm working on getting it a little bit earlier, depending upon kind of like what I have going on in the evening. Or I'll fast. If it gets too late, I'll just fast that night. All right, any questions? All of these things we're gonna get into a lot of detail about later on. So each week is representing each part now. We good? All right, sounds good. So Jenna's gonna close with some meditation stuff, and then we'll be on our way.
All right, thank you, Cami. All right, so I'm gonna start with kind of the morning and evening meditations and what are the differences and what you should be kind of focusing on. So in the morning, the best thing to do is to set your intention for the day. This is your time when you're waking up, you want to set your intention, wake up your senses, wake up your body a little bit. So the best time to do it in the morning is between 5 and 6. That's kind of the auspicious time of the day. If you wake up earlier or if you wake up later, do it earlier, it's fine. But kind of right when you wake up is when your body is the quietest, your mind's the quietest, and you want to have that time for yourself to really just settle into yourself first. So intention setting, this can be anywhere from what you want to learn today, what you want to achieve today. If it's at the beginning of the week, it can be what you want to do in that week, what your intent is for that week. If it's at the first day of the year and it's your first meditation of the year, that first morning you want to wake up, that's a good time trying to set that New Year's resolution. I call it a New Year's intention just because I don't like the word resolution. I like intention a lot better. Um, and it's going to be kind of go like the meditation we did at the beginning of class today, with just intention setting. What do I want to learn? What am I hoping to achieve? All of that type of things. You also want to wake up the senses. So when I first sit down for my meditation, I do a quick body scan, and then I go into each sense. So I kind of go from kind of the outside in, because I am really trying to close in on that breath. So what do you hear in your environment? What do you smell? Is there a taste in your mouth? Do you feel anything on your skin that may be a little rough or smooth or soft? And then usually the eyes are closed, so I just think about, what do I see on the back of my eyelids? And that's kind of that closing in to the breath. And drowsiness may be a problem for you in the morning, if you're not a morning person. I am not a morning person. That's why I wake up so early. A little bit of mindful movement is really good. So if you want to go for a walk, or slowly just wake up the body, yoga is probably the best way to wake up, just because it moves your body intentionally with your breath, so you can really focus on your breathing after that. And then moving into the evening meditations. So this is our time to shut down our bodies, shut down our senses, going into a gratitude practice and reflecting on our day. So for shutting down the body, I actually still go from the outside in. So doing that same body scan, and then closing in on the senses, and then following my breath. And then from there, I reflect on the day. So what did I learn? What did I achieve? What am I proud of that I did? And then going into a gratitude practice. So in my meditation, I do run through everything that I am grateful for. And then after my meditation, I take that time to journal and write down usually just 3 things I'm grateful for. And the evening meditation is one of the better times to journal, because you can reflect on your day. Not saying that you can't journal in the morning. I just find it more productive to do it at the end of the day, because your feelings are so fresh. And then moving a little bit into mind states. I just wanted to cover the morning and evening meditation since we're running a little shorter on time. But so mindfulness and concentration, we talked about it a little bit last week. Just kind of what they are, how they play a part in meditation. So mindfulness is described in 2 ways. It's sati, so it's a Pali word. So it's non-forgetfulness of what is wholesome. So it's our time to do something unwholesome. So we want to be completely in the moment, aware of everything. And then the other one is non-forgetfulness. So we want to be able to remember things that are actually present in the moment, instead of constantly being drifting off into different spaces. So a lot of times it happens like when we drive and we get to our destination. Usually it's a destination that we have been to a lot of times, and we may have ran through five red stoplights and have no idea. And it's stuff like that where we want to be present in the moment, and we want to watch each green light, each car passing us, and still be fully in our body, in the moment. And kind of you live that way throughout the rest of your day. So that's mindfulness or awareness. And then the second part of meditation is concentration. So we kind of get rid of all the mental distractions. We go into that one point focus. A lot of times it is the breath. That's just the easiest thing that we focus on. So following the breath in and following the breath out. And you can, if you would like to have more of like a candle gazing meditation, you can use that as your concentrated single point. But I always use the breath, and I would suggest using the breath because it literally is always there. So you notice your inhale in. If you're a little bit more practiced, you can help hold a little bit of a retention at the inhale. Notice that. Notice your exhale, and then a little bit more retention. And you just follow that breath like a wave. You want to notice the middle of your breath the end of your breath, but the key is to not notice the breath before. so you really want to stay with that exact inhale or that exact exhale. Mind states. So these are the emotions that we feel throughout our mind, and know that is constantly changing. We go from happy, grateful, surprised, depressed, tired, energetic, bright, dull, concentrated, and we can go through all of those in the meditation in a matter of seconds. As soon as you notice a mind state, it changed. So each millisecond of a moment is constantly changing. And when you look at mind states and throughout your meditation, and this goes into emotions, it's how you react to them. So so when you experience an emotion, you want to experience, feel it, and then let it go. Know that it's not permanent. It won't have any effect on really anything else. Just let it go. And noticing our breath and staying with our breath will help with that, because we won't be drifting off into these constant trains of, oh, I did this. What if this happens? What if this happens? We want to constantly stay in the present moment with our breath. Are there any questions so far on meditation, or if you have been meditating for a little bit, what problems or how great it is? No? Excellent. All right. So we'll go into our closing meditation, unless, Cam, you have something else to say before we close up. A natural meditation, would that be like walking in nature, or what? I'm not familiar with that exact term.
That means I'm sitting on my porch drinking my coffee, listening to the birds, watching the sky, listening, feeling the wind. Just, I'm in nature right then, present in nature, and just paying attention to what's there right now.
Yep, that is meditation. Yep. When you meditate, are your eyes closed or open?
Open.
Open? Yep. So another thing that is a form of meditation, it would be more on the side of maybe mindfulness, and not so much meditation. There is a slight difference. Meditation is a single point too. So coming back to a single point, if you would have that single point be coffee, which is like mindful drinking, there are meditations surrounding food and coffee and all of that. So as long as you come back to a single point, I would say that is good. That's the key. And being in nature is amazing.
Okay.
So good, excellent, good. Oh, Kami said something. A sense meditation, keep focus on. Yep, yeah. So senses. Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Kami, and thank you, Becky. All right, so we'll go ahead and find that comfortable seat once again. And close your eyes, and once again, just settle into your breath. And notice if your breath has changed at all from the beginning of today. Or maybe it's the same nice, steady inhale and exhale. Take this moment to reflect on today's class. What did you learn today? What are you hoping to achieve in the near future surrounding these topics? What are you looking forward to learning more about? And coming back to your breath, following that inhale in and exhale out. Now, knowing what you know from just this one class, set another intention for these 30 days. Maybe this intention is the same as the one before that we said at the beginning of practice. Or maybe it's different. What would you like to achieve? Bringing our palms together at heart center. And take another moment to thank yourself one last time for giving yourself this opportunity. Om Shanti. Namaste. Thank you, ladies.
All right. So next week we will talk more specifically about sleep. The following week will be on exercise, and the final week will be on nutrition. And like I said, we're not going to talk as specifically about the constitutions, the individual doshas. We will get into more detail about that in a month, next month in September. So I want you to make sure that you're focused on this kind of stuff because it's the basics to be able to get the foundation for everything. And there's so much information, you guys. So this is a good introduction. Make sure that you check out your Google Classroom because there are a couple articles on there. Jenna's got some notes in there. She's got a couple meditations in there. There's some links to some meditation classes that Jenna teaches during the week. So you're invited to go to that. And then we'll see you next time. So if you have any questions, you can email me or you can type it into